5 scores! Rick 5.
We've decided to get ourselves back in the game again with our podcast.
Rick 5 and Gary 9.
Probably the craziest story that you're ever going to hear about hockey.
We're going to be coming back to you on a regular basis.
You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 63 of the Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs fan. Joining me, as always, my winger, Ricky Squid Vibe. Squid, how's things?
Things are good. Day off today, no golf. I'm off for the weekend. We have our grandson coming tomorrow for the whole weekend, which is going to be a blast. And so I just said I'm not going to golf.
All right. Well, but you're preparing yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, I know the feeling. I got one coming to visit me next week, so I know all about that. So I'm prepping already. Well, our guest today, Squid, was taken by Los Angeles Kings in 1972 amateur draft after a junior career with the London Knights. Started in EHL, played a few seasons in WHA before spending 11 years in NHL with LA, Toronto, Chicago, New Jersey. Please welcome to the Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan Show, Dave Hutchison. Hutchie, first off, thanks for joining us, and how you doing?
I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks for having me. Nice to see you, Squid. But as we're talking about golf, am I going to see you on Tuesday up at Bondhead?
Yes. I will be there.
Hutchie, how are you spending your days?
Nice to see you in person. I'm not totally retired. I've been selling real estate for Remax for 35 years, basically since I retired. And I have a motorcycle I like to around. I got an old Chevelle here. I got 5 grandchildren. Got a little trailer down on Lake Erie at Turkey Point we enjoy going down to. So things are good.
Fantastic. Well, I got to let you know a little secret, Hutchie. When Squid and I are doing our research on our guests, we go deep. We uncovered a few gems from an old friend of yours, Billy Gardner, from back in your Chicago days. So here's one for you now. A quote from Gard suggests Hutchie was a hoot, scary times too. He also remembered you. He thought you had a beautiful 63 Corvette, and you've just mentioned you have some vintage cars, so that probably fits that mode. Now, here's the one that I like. Now, for people of our generation, happy days, the famous opening with the Fonz, looking at himself in the mirror, figuring he didn't need to comb his hair anymore because he was so perfect. In my opinion, it has been surpassed by a line you apparently use while combing your hair, leaving the rink each day. And I quote, "I can't wait for tomorrow because I get better looking every day." And with all due respect to the Fonz, that's a legendary quote, Hutchie.
My hair has changed since those days. But back in those LA days or in Chicago, I mean, looks for everything. We weren't wearing helmets. Long hair was in. But I do remember back in '69 when I was playing for the London Knights. Yeah, that's before this time. For initiation, they shaved my hair bald. And it clean right down, it says right to the wood. I had basically shaved. And back in those days, 1969, hair was everything. So my next day at school, I wore my mother had found an old wig somewhere for me. So I put it on and wore it to school.
Squid?
Oh, boy. That's a good story, Hutchie. And I know we're going to get into a lot of them, especially when I played with you in Toronto. Obviously, I played against you when you were in Chicago, not when you were in LA. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Hey, your place looks great there. Lots of stuff up on the walls. Probably a lot of memories in that room.
Well, this is my garage we're in right now. And it has 3 bays. So I got my 70 Chevelle over here on the right side, my Harley here. This is my man cave side. So we watch the games. I got heat. It's a good spot to come. Some of my favorite memories are, if you can see to the right over here, there's a picture, Enforcers for the Forces. And that's when we went over with the likes of Tiger Williams, Bob Probert, and we went to visit the soldiers at Afghanistan. Here we are. Here's Proby and I here now. And that's at a forward operating base called Graceland, right in the top of Kandahar City. And during this little trip we had, it was just Bob and I, and we had to they asked us if we would mind taking driving a vehicle back from this forward operating base back to Kandahar Airfield where we were stationed, which was about 20 miles. And so we dress up as like in disguise. And what happened, helicopter, we were with General Hillier at the time, and he got called. He had to go, and he had an emergency call. Bob and I took the ride in the back of it was a Nissan Pathfinder. We had two, the soldiers that were with Van Dues from Quebec, and they were kind of dark skinned with full beards, and they looked just like Taliban, and they were already under disguise. And I thought, when I saw them coming over, these guys are going to take you back to camp. I'm going, what? Guys, they looked exactly like the Taliban. So that's what we had to dress up in. We had to go under camouflage. And first thing I had to get rid of was my sunglasses. They don't wear them over there. But as we jumped in the back of this Pathfinder, the doors were all bulletproof. They were heavy. The glass was thick. And the guy who was driving gave us our instructions. If we get attacked from the right, go out the left door, and your machine gun is right here. And it was under a blanket. And I said, oh, okay. And I reached over and I touched, and there it was, the machine gun that I was using in that picture that you just saw me. That's how we drove back 20 miles to Kandahar Airfield through Kandahar City, in the most dangerous place in the world at the time. And you see what's going on over there now. It's a lot of wasted blood over there, my friend.
Boy, oh boy, that's a long way from dealing with a guy with a clipboard at the first tee, Squid, isn't it?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And it's a little bit different than going into the corners to retrieve a puck too. So God bless those soldiers for having to go through that, for sure.
Well, let's actually let's go back to, you're born in London, Ontario. Speak to the early years of your career playing, and then ended up playing for the London Knights, and talk about the experience of playing for the hometown team as well.
Well, it was always great. What happened? My father passed when I was just turned 17. So I didn't want to go anywhere. I wanted to stay at home in London, but I didn't have to because back in those days, you got protected by your hometown if you lived in that town. So, the likes of myself, Rob Ramage, you remember Walt McKechnie, we were London guys we didn't go into the draft. It didn't come until later. So I was living at home with my mom the whole time. And, we had some good years. Bep Quidlin was our coach when I first got there. Daryl Sittler, Dan Maloney, Pat Boutette, Reg Thomas is another former Toronto Maple Leaf. Butch, I should say, Dan, do you remember him? He was a goaltender for Atlanta Flames, and Butch Bouchard was our goaltender back then. So we had a decent team. We beat in the first round of the playoffs. We got up against Roger Nielsen and the Peterborough Petes. We knocked them off, and then we ran into they allowed ties back then. We were playing the Marlies, and we went into an 8-game series with them. It was a number of points you accumulated over the games. But anyway, they beat us, and they went on to lose to the Memorial Cup winning Montreal Junior Canadiens, which were a powerhouse back then with Gilbert Perreault and Richard Martin, etc. So that was my first year in junior. And then, 2 more years, and away I went to play pro. My very first year in pro was I got picked by the Philadelphia Blazers of the World Hockey Association and the LA Kings. I didn't get Kings, and the WHA were coming in, and they were making a team out there, and they were paying more money. So I went to the WHA for 2 years. My first year in Philadelphia, we had a character on our team. His name was Derek Sanderson. Now, you remember Turk Sanderson was the highest paid player in the world at the time. $1 million a year he was making in 1972. So this one day, it's after practice, we're in Philadelphia, and he asked me if I want to go and buy a car. I says, okay, I got nothing going on today. I'll go buy a car with you. We get into the car. We got blue jeans. He's got cowboy boots on, T-shirts. And we head down the road. I ask him, I says, Turk, what kind of car are you buying? And he says, Rolls Royce. I thought to myself, here I am. I've just turned 20. Here I am thinking, Rolls Royce. Wow. Then I said, how much do they cost? He looked at me and he said, stupid. You don't ask how much a Rolls Royce costs. You're going to go buy one. You just buy it. Oh, so there was my first lesson as I was turning pro. Anyway, we walk into the showroom, and there's the ugliest brown convertible Cornish, brown on brown. And Turk walked up to it, opened the door, jumped in, and the salesman's come running out. He goes, get out of that car. Turk says, you get lost. Call your boss. And that day, but he made sure that the salesman didn't get a commission on it. He told the owner of the company, the road, I'll buy the car, but the guy that come out and told me to get out of it, as long as he doesn't get a commission, I'm going to buy it. And he did.
Oh boy, kind of crazy, but it reminds me of a story of when I got traded to Chicago, and I couldn't afford a Mercedes. I wanted the 420 SEL. I couldn't afford it in Toronto. It was too expensive, plus the taxes. So I go to Chicago. I'm making more, clearing more, and it's probably about $25,000 less. So I go into the dealership. Same thing. I walk in. All these old salesmen are sitting there. Nobody gets anything. And so then I leave. I go to another dealership. Same thing happens. So I go home. And I'm like, 27, I think, at the time. So I go back in a couple of weeks, and sure enough, same thing. The old guys are just sitting there, and then this young guy, about a little older than me, comes up and he says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to buy that black car right there outside." He goes, "Well, you want to lease it?" And I said, No, I want to buy it. And I said, "No." He said, "Well, it's $64,000. I said, "Well, it won't be when we're done." So we sat down. I paid $60,500, and when I was walking out, get in the car after they cleaned it, and I'm driving by the window, and all these old guys are standing there like this, and I'm waving to them, and I'm giving them the finger as I drive by because they wouldn't come and talk to me. So they didn't get the commission. The young guy did. I was happy about that.
Well, Hutchie, talk about your first year playing pro, just a WHA, and just some of your expectations going to that level and some of the difference you experienced coming from junior hockey to playing that, even to WHA.
Well, it's a big change because here you are. I'm just, like I said, I've just turned 20. I'm first time really away from home. Go to a strange town. I don't know anybody in it. Actually, when I got one of the first games, I got hit with a puck in the forehead, and I got I had internal bleeding. So I was in the hospital for about a week or 10 days. And in there at the time, my good buddy who I go buy cars with, Turk Sanderson, is in there in traction. He's going through this phony thing that he's got a bad back, right? They went through that for a little while, and then but we're going, I would roll down. I look like I'm coming back from Afghanistan. I got bandage wrapped all around my head like this here, and I'm in a wheelchair, and I'm rolling down the hall to his room, and he's ordering in food every night. So we're not eating hospital food. We're eating veal parmigiana. But just the very first game that we opened up it was one of the very first whole league. Philadelphia Blazers were opening up against whoever. And the Zamboni was late, and it was coming down Main Street of Philadelphia trying to get to the where we didn't play at the Spectrum. We played at another rink, It was on University of Pennsylvania's campus. And when the Zamboni got on the ice, it went around the ice the first time and it just chewed up ice. So there was 2 feet, about 4 or 5 inches thick of ice and 2 feet round. Turk goes down, he brings one up, he says, "Here's our ice, guys." So they had to cancel the game. But the key was, when everybody was entering the building, everybody got a puck with a Philadelphia Blazers logo on it. So an actual puck. So Turk comes onto the ice with and they got the microphone, and they're talking to the people in the stand. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're really sorry, we got to cancel the game. Here come the pucks. There's 1,000 pucks firing down at these guys. Philadelphia, we're talking Philadelphia. They're nice fans there in Philly." And they had to run out, get out of there. That's our first game in the WHA. Went on for like that. I played there for 2 seasons. I got it was like the King, this guy, George McGuire, was the scout for the Kings who came to sign me. I was going to, make measly money, and I was going to be for sure certain that I'm going to be starting in the minors. I'm not going to be making the big team, and I'm going on and on and on. So, the WHA was a good stepping stone for me. And then as soon as I played out that contract, I signed with the LA, a 4-year deal, and LA, things. I got some real good coaching there from Bob Polford, and he told me how Dave Hutchison is supposed to play the game of hockey. And I was allowed to hang on to the puck for 1 second. That was it. So when the puck comes to me, I already had to know what I was going to be doing with it. I'm serious. I had to know. And if I tried to carry it, like, Kirk Sanderson behind me there now, playing with St. Louis Blues. Yeah. Anyway, if I'm carrying the puck at all, then I get benched. And that's what to do. I had, a place like this, I'm digging the puck out from behind the net, but somebody passed puck, I already know where it was going, and I'd be moving it right away. And then I'd become a better player. He told me how to be, smart at being aggressive. This is all Bob Pulford now. And ended up having 4 good seasons there. And when I played out that contract, I signed with the Leafs as a free agent, and that's the team I wanted to play for. Squid, you know what that's like. I had some.
Well, Dave, just before you get into the Leafs, let's go back. I want to go back to the WHA just for a moment here. And going through those first 2 years, Philadelphia and Vancouver. So now, how did you end up in Vancouver first off? And the second thing I want to ask you was the WHA, going through pro, here you're a young kid, come from London. So, I mean, anything's going on throughout the year. WHA is some crazy stories guys have told us, but some of the stuff going on that leaving you shaking your head thinking this is pro hockey.
Well, to answer the first question, the team was sold, and it went from the Philadelphia Blazers and became the Vancouver Blazers.
That's right.
That's how we ended up there. But, what was the second question?
Well, just some of the crazy stuff that went on. You're just shaking your head. This is supposed to be pro hockey. We heard about checks not clearing and, going whether you're going to get paid, all these type of things, and like the Zamboni breaking down, but all this kind of crazy stuff.
The teams
supposed to be pro.
Yeah. No, the teams I ever played for, I never, ever got a check that did not cash.
Okay.
For me, don't forget, I'm just coming out of junior. I don't know. This is firsthand for me. It was obviously different when we come to the NHL. Everything was more first class, but, they tried to make it as first class as they could, the owners that we had. And, we flew. Jim Pattison was the owner of Vancouver Blazers, and he was a big car dealer out there. So we all had cars, and, he made it real good for us. And we were playing in the same rink as the Canucks. So they were trying to, keep us up there in a standard that was kind of equal to the Canucks. And no, it was good. I had no problem with the WHA at all my first 2 years. But, then I went to LA, and once I was there, I roomed with Bob Nevin my first 2 years out there. Nevy and I were the only 2 single guys on the year. We were like the odd couple. I was 22 and he was 36. Maybe he'd already gone through 3 wives. So we were the only single guys out there. So we had a ball out there. And we weren't allowed to go into the Forum Club, which was the bar in the arena, in the LA Forum. That's where the Kings used to play. They're at the Staples Center now, but back when we played, it was the Forum. And allowed to go upstairs to the Forum Club bar. And that's off limits to pretty much any rink in the NHL. Nobody's allowed to go to the bar at the game. So Nebby and I would go in there because that's, of course, where all the action was. And this one day I come up and this guy comes up to me. I'm standing at the bar and he says to me, Dave Hutchison. He says, I like the way you play. He says, my name's Glenn Fry. He says, I play with a rock and roll band out here called the Eagles. Have you ever heard of us? I said, no, I haven't heard of you. And that would have been 74. And, I hadn't heard of the Eagles back then, but we became good friends. And, he passed away about years ago now.
Yes.
But we had a lot of good times going to see the Eagles at their concerts. Glenn at his home in Hawaii and his home in Colorado. And so those were fun days when I was with LA.
The Hutchie, what was it like? Was it difficult to play? Because I know I played in Birmingham in the WHA. LA obviously is a little different with being LA and that sort of thing, but the weather aspect, was it difficult to concentrate on hockey? Or I found it easy personally myself because I could get away from the game when things weren't going good. So give us your take on what you thought of playing in the warm weather climate and a place like LA where all the movie stars are and everything.
Well, I can tell you that this is coming from the Bob Nevin, and he would say he liked it out in LA because after the game or after practice, because we'd be done by noon, we could go play golf, we play tennis, go to the beach. In Toronto or Chicago, when the weather's crappy, what do you got to do? So we found it great. Another thing is this, great, and Squid, you'll agree to this. When you go into any rink or any locker room, how they all smell the same, and away you go. You went in the rink, throw a bash on there playing goal for the little guy.
Yep.
But every rink smells the same when you get inside there, Squid. And so you turn your game on and play the game.
I kind of just thought, because I thought the same thing when I was in Birmingham. I loved it because like you say, you're done at noon and we could go play golf or like you say, tennis or go by the pool or whatever. Because it was 75 degrees. It was nice and warm, and I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Well, you see the players around the league now. Some of the prime places to play are all the southern cities: Florida, Dallas, LA, Phoenix. Vegas. The guys they don't mind going there, or Winnipeg.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to follow up your story on the Forum Club because I know a friend of mine played there during the Gretzky era, and the number one job in LA at the time was the hostess at the Forum Club. They were all fighting to get in there and do it for free because of the celebrities and directors and movie people and so on from show business that were in that room every night following the Kings or the Lakers. So it became quite a hot spot. And I know I was in that bar one night and I had Greg Norman around me, Jason Bateman, and about that guy MacGyver he was the Hot Show at the time, and all these guys are all standing around, and I'm standing in this bar and I go, what am I doing here with all these guys? But so it was quite the spot, Dave. Now, any other celebrity sort of happenings with you? Did you get, besides Glenn Fry, don't get much bigger than that, but as a King player, did you guys run any other celebrities?
Yeah, I got another guy. Yes, I was playing for the Kings, and we're in Buffalo, and I got hit with a puck behind my jaw here. Big Korab. broke. So I was wired. This woman who was in, she was a movie star, but she was into all the vitamins and the, the health food. And her name was James. And she played McMillan wife in, with Rock Hudson, one of the movies or shows way back then. I don't know if you recall her or not. Yeah. She had long black hair, beautiful woman. Yep. And we became friends with her through this injury that I had. Anyway, she goes off and does a movie in Texas, and she comes back and she introduced me to Peter Fonda from Easy Rider.
Easy Rider, yeah.
So of course, one of my heroes was Peter Fonda. So we went out and we saw Hoyt Axton, who was also in this movie, play one night up at the Palomino Club in northern LA. And that's when I met Peter Fonda for the first time. And he says, hey, I want to take you out some night. I said, sure. So he says, okay. So he came by on Monday night, and he takes me down to the Troubadour, and he pulls up to the front door of my where I was living in LA. He's got the biggest red Cadillac Eldorado convertible, 2-door, red interior, red exterior. And away we go, heading downtown LA to the Troubadour, which was a famous place for music. Mm-hmm. So I think Linda Ronstadt was playing there that night. But I had a good time with him.
Boy, tough to top that one, eh, Squid?
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think it would be kind of crazy meeting all those people. I mean, I know I became good friends with John Candy. And I remember one time we're playing in LA, and he walked into the room after the game. I was in the shower, and he goes, "Where the heck is Squid?" And all the guys are looking at him like, "Holy cow, that's John Candy." And so I came out, and he goes, "Hey, come on, get your ass in gear." He said, "We got to get upstairs to the Forum Club." We were allowed in there, by the way, when we were going there to play. So that's where we went right after the game. And I remember John Candy taking me up there after one of the games.
That's pretty good, yeah. On a lighter note, Hutchie, being come from a hockey town, LA, the team is still fairly new. It was only a couple of years old when you were playing there, expansion team. Any funny conversations you recall having with fans talking about the game of hockey, which they really didn't understand? There must have been a few.
No, it was, when we kind of hung around with most of ourselves. It's not, like we were going out there. The people that were coming to the game were educated. There was a lot of Canadians in LA, mm-hmm. as there are. So they were making up a bulk of the fans. But whenever we went anywhere, we got treated well. And, we hung around Manhattan Beach a lot. And, I think most of the guys, they all live down there right now in, $1 million, $2, $5, $10, $15, $20 million homes. Marty McSorley's still there. A good friend of mine who's a player agent, his name is Ron Salzer. When I go to LA, I stay with him. Again, all down in Manhattan Beach. So, it's a real nice, clean area to live in. And sometimes I wished I'd stayed in LA because it is so beautiful down there. And but we moved back here. And after Toronto, I had an opportunity to go back to Chicago and live. And but we had family here in London, and we came back here, and I'm in the real estate business, so I have no regrets that way. We like where we live, and it's good and close to Toronto. We spend quite a bit of time there with Rick and our Toronto Maple Leaf and NHL alumni. Going around playing games before the pandemic came around and raising monies for different charities, including the Torch Run with this. So it's wonderful where I live here in London because of the location.
Well, let's get into that then. Let's talk about the offseason of 1978. You were traded to Toronto along with Lawrence Stamler for Scott Garland, Brian Glennie, Kurt Walker, and a second-round draft pick that turned out to be Mark Hardy, pretty good player. How did all that unfold for you, and were you expecting to be moved at the time?
Well, Yeah, I played out my 4-year contract. I was a free agent.
Yeah.
So I had already been talking with at the time, not proud to say it, but Al Eagleson was my agent. Anyway, not only did he screw me, he screwed just about all of us. So we're all kind of like in that same boat. He was agents for Daryl Sittler, and between Sittler, who was my ex-teammate with London Knights, and Dan Maloney, who was also with the Leafs, and Roger Nielsen was beefing up the Leafs at the time. They got to me, and they said, come to Toronto, and would have anyway. So I knew I was going to be moved, or at least I knew I was going to sign where I wanted to sign, because I was a free agent with compensation, and that's what the trade was that they met to go back the other way. Anyway, we get no. So I get a call. Now the League want me, but Chicago want me, the Blackhawks. And they eventually traded for me a couple of years later and got me from Toronto. That's when Punch Imlach came in and caused the trouble. But so I had my pick between those two teams. There was actually more, but those were the two teams that I was interested in. Bob Pulford was my coach in LA, and now he's the general manager in Chicago. They are interested in me, but I also want to play for Toronto and I got these guys, Boutet, Maloney, McKay. These guys are my guys from London that I played with already that are on the team. It's an up and coming team. It's just beat the Islanders the summer of '78. So that made up. That's why I wanted to come to Toronto. That's where I signed.
Well, now
Hey,
you're speaking. Hey, Squid, before you start, I got to set you up on this one. Now, you talk about Alan Eagleson. Did he know your name, Dave?
Well, Al was my agent at first, and of course, Bill Waters worked for him. I always just dealt with Bill. But I'm in Vancouver, and I'm the 5th pick overall, and I'm Eagleson's client, and he's with the Player Association, and he goes to every team during training camp to meet with the players and talk about everything. But wherever he goes, he takes his clients on that team out for a nice dinner. So he told everybody that was his client where the dinner was going to be. So I get there, and I'm in this room, and kind of had a separate room in the restaurant. And one of his assistants came over, and it wasn't Sam, it was somebody else, and said, "What's your name?" I said, "Rick Vibe, why?" And he didn't say anything. But then I saw him, he did beelined it for Al, and then I see him whispering in Al's ear, and I know damn well that Al didn't know my goddamn name, and he sent this guy over to find out who the hell I was. And I was a 5th pick overall.
Well, here's what Al Eagleson was like, because I was out on that dinner many times. He was my agent for about 8 years. So you're right. When we would go out for dinner, and then he'd get us all in that nice, comfortable, private room, and then he'd get up and take the mic, or he'd stand up and go around the room and belittle everybody. And he'd do the same thing when he came into our locker room at training camp. Talked about also, he'd come in. He was our fearless leader, our head of our PA, and do the same thing. And he'd come in, and if anybody had a question, or he would just go off on them. Yeah. Didn't matter who it was. But he also always had the big guys that were in his corner. So in Chicago, it was Tony Esposito. In Philly, it was Bobby Clark. In Toronto, it was Daryl. In Long Island, it was Trottier. He always had those guys in his
LA, Marcel Dion.
Marcel Dion. They always had the big guys. And, granted, he represented a lot of them back in those days. Bobby Orr was his very first client. Look what he did to him. No, he got us all and charged us way too much back then. And but he did have power.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to say, all right.
Yeah.
So now you're in Toronto, Dave. What went wrong? And I'm suspecting the name Punch Imlock's going to come up. Oh, Squid, you can set it up. Go ahead.
All right. So things kind of turned sour after a short period of time in Toronto. Punch heavily involved in all of the crap that was going on. So there's two goddamn great stories involving you. One was at the airport and one was after you got traded to Chicago. Walk us through those two instances.
Okay. I'll go back a little bit. We're having problems. Punch had come in. He said he wasn't going to trade anybody until Christmas, and right after Christmas, away went Pat Boutet and Lanny Marlowe. And Daryl came in after warm-up, and we were in the back room, in the training room by the showers at Old Maple Leaf Gardens. And Daryl said he had scissors, cut this C off. I said, what? And I tried the scissors, and it wasn't doing. He says, well, grab a scalpel. And gunner room was right there. So we went in, grabbed the scalpel, and I came out, and I tried to cut it off as neatly as I could. Wouldn't cut. I cut a hole about that big. That's what was this C. The rest of the and we walked out, and when he came on the ice, you wanted to see the crap hit the fan that game. Anyway, just before then, it was just maybe a couple of days, a week before Christmas, playing the Habs, making our flights leaving from the Skyport, behind the airport there. We had a little DCA chart that we did. And it's an early morning flight. It's like 9 o'clock or 8:30 flight that we're flying up to Montreal, and game day. And Pat Boutet gets on the plane last, and he says, look out the window. And we're looking out the little bubble windows of the airplane. He says, Punch has left his lights on. So he's riding. Carl Brewer is riding with Punch Imlock to the game. You ever saw that before, where a player would ride with the general manager to the game? Anyway, they're coming on. They don't see that they've left their lights on. We don't tell them. We go to play the game in Montreal, of course. We had a good game. We lost like 2-1 or 3-2. And we get back, land down in Toronto. It's about midnight. Sure enough, his lights have been left on the whole day. His battery's dead. So this is like 1980. No cell phones. He was stranded out there. So we're coming out. We all know. And he's standing out there with Carl Brewer. Anybody got cables? And well, everybody had cables. We're all driving Jeeps back then because there was a Jeep dealer in Toronto. So I'm riding with Ian Turnbull. And Hawk Turnbull, he's got cables in his trunk. So he goes out in his Cadillac, opens the trunk, pulls the cable out, leaves it, and slams it in the back door of the passenger side door, and then takes a big swoop around the parking lot. And he's clinkety clank. Sparks are coming off the battery cables as we go around the parking lot, and slowly right in front of Punch and Brewer standing there. I'm sitting there, got my arm out the window. He saw me, and I get traded the next day to Chicago. And that was so I get up in the morning, and I get a call from Bob Pulford. He says, Hutch, we've traded for you. We're going to get you to go down to the rink. They'll tell you when you get down there, grab your stuff, and you get a flight out of here tomorrow morning, and you'll be in Chicago. I'll pick you up at the airport, and you'll come to practice, and I played the next day kind of thing. So as that day, so I'm in practice, and I know I've been traded, but nobody knows. The trainers haven't been told, and nobody knows. Me, I'm on the ice acting like a fool. I'm running over. I'm taking runs at Carl Brewer. I'm slashing. I'm hitting everybody in sight. I'm being a real dink on the ice. Getting the puck when it comes to me, I throw it into the stands. And so, again, after practice, nobody says anything. Punch is keeping it a secret to himself. It's to me and everybody else. So I said, well, guys, I want to let you know I'm gone. I've already been talking to Pulford. He's not lying to me. We went down to Scotland Yard, and it was a bar down on the Esplanade, and we're having down there. And there's 10, 12 of the teammates there. And a good old friend of mine who's passed now, Jim Kernahan, used to be a sports writer for the Toronto Star. Yeah. And he's walking down the street. Walt McKechnie spots him out the window and grabs him, brings him in. He's got his like a good reporter, a newspaper tucked under his arm. Brings out the newspaper. There's a full page picture of Punch Imlach. Tiger Williams sticks it onto the board, onto the dartboard at Scotland Yard. It was going to be a place where they played darts. Stuck it on the board there. Well, that was it. No, it wasn't Tiger. It was Ian Turnbull who stuck it on the board. That's who stuck it on. And that was it. Nobody threw darts at it, which the story came out. There was just one dart, and it was stuck in his forehead right on the board. And, the story went wild. And, a lot of trouble. We got a lot of trouble over that. Punch knew a big shot down at the Star and got my friend, Jim Kernahan, who broke the story. He says, I want to know who was throwing the darts at me. And Kearney says, I'm not telling him. He says, I ain't telling him. And whoever got young, maybe had the Toronto Star at the time, fired him. Kernahan came to London and became one of the best, very good, well-respected sports writer for the London Free Press after that day. But a few guys got traded and just over this thing. But, that was when Punch cleaned out the whole team, like a lot of guys. Paul Mateer, Kenny, Tiger for you guys. You try to trade, and you know how that all went down. Go through the list. Ian Turnbull, a lot of guys went. Patty Boutet first. Joel Quenneville was our first round draft pick that year. I'd say 8 or 9 guys. He let go. Anybody who had an affiliation with Al Eagleson was gone. And that's how that happened. And
or if he was a friend of Sittler's. Or a friend of Sittler's like Lanny McDonald.
Yep, that's right. Yep. Because he couldn't trade Daryl because Daryl, unbeknownst to the GM, had a no trade clause. Mm-hmm. Now you're the GM, you don't know that? And he makes the trade to, I think it was Philadelphia or someplace, and it's noon. And Daryl says, well, hold on, you better read my contract. No trade clause. Then Lanny. So that went. That was here. Lanny was a big part of our team.
Well, there's a story that we had. I used to host a number of hockey events. And we had some journalists over one night, and a guy named Luke Hawes. He happened to be in the press box the night that Sittler tore the sweater off, or the C off his sweater, and he was sitting beside Punch, and Punch came in and sat down. And all of a sudden, Sittler came out, and there's no C in the sweater, and Punch doesn't notice. And he said, don't look now, but I don't think your captain has a C in his sweater. And he went, what? And he looked down over the ice, and he was skating around, and he apparently just went ballistic and started running downstairs, and all hell broke loose. But the question I have for you, Dave, is, obviously it's an obvious question, but was the room as fractured as it looked from the outside looking in at you guys? And just how did you guys deal with it all?
Yeah. Then we had a real good team, real tight team. Not then. And then it broke. You're right. It fractured. Once he got rid of everybody, it was gone. And the team took a long time to rebound. And, when you look at it, Squid, without Wendell Clark back in those days, boy, would the Leafs ever been in the doldrums back then. It took a long time to recover from that Punch Imlach did to the team.
Well, it took forever because there was no leadership at the top. You go above even the GM and you look at Harold Ballard and who he hires as the general manager after Punch, and that's Jerry McNamara. And then look at the coaches he hires, all because Harold wouldn't spend any money. And we drafted some pretty good players, but because our GM was not smart enough, he brought them in way too early and didn't let them go back to junior and become the players that they should have been. And that happened to a lot of players during the 80s. And the only guy that I think was ready to play when he was drafted was Wendell Clark. And other than that, all the other guys, they could have used another year or two in junior, and then I think they would have became better hockey players.
Oh, I agree. But you know how it is. It's like now at all costs, and that seemed like it was back then. But you know, he really when he hired. Well, you're right. Like, what about Floyd Smith, Dickie Duff?
Mm-hmm.
These guys are coaches and assistant coaches and head scouts. And well, the one year he drafted the 3 defensemen from Belleville because they had a good track. They had a good racetrack in Belleville, so we just drafted the 3 defensemen all from the one team. Benning and I think Boo McGill was there maybe, and
well. I'm going to ask you, Hutchie. I mean, as a kid, you watched Leafs growing up. Maple Leaf Gardens was an iconic shrine to all of us. The thing that, I mean, how strange to have this perception of this team growing up, then to play for them, go on to the crazy things that are all happening. I guess where I'm going with this is you must have had some sort of vision going back to play for Toronto. And then when you got involved in it, and you're just looking around and go, is this really happening with all this punch stuff and all the craziness? And I mean, it must have been a major distraction or a big impact on young players like yourself in a negative way.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, it really was. You're right. It was so exciting for me to come here. And at that time, that's when we had Roger Nielsen. We had was running, and everything was coherent. Everything was up and up. We had a good team. We were, we got beat by Montreal in the Cup again that year, but we were close. And then I don't know why Punch was in a big hurry. He didn't like. Well, the one night we were there when he what did he do? He fired Rod Nielsen. That he did. He fired Roger, and then Daryl went, who are you going to replace me for Roger? Oh, we needed a replacement? So he hired him back. I'm sure, Mike, you must remember.
Yeah,
and he asked Roger to wear a paper bag.
Yep, that was Harold did that.
Yeah, he asked Roger to wear a paper bag over his head when he came out to the ice so nobody would know that he hired him back again. And, of course, Roger refused. These are some of the things that were going on back then.
Well, Squid, you can add to that.
Crazy stuff. Even when I got there, I mean, it got worse. I mean, Punch had the heart attack, like you said. Harold wouldn't spend any money. Christ, he canceled our charters for half a season, the second half of the season, because the flight attendant wouldn't let him have some chocolate bars because he had diabetes, and he got pissed off and he canceled the charters, which, unbeknownst to him, did us a favor because we had all those foreigners, Czechs and stuff had come in, and we never got to hang around that much together. But when the charters were canceled, we stayed on the road all the time. So we got to know each other well, and then there was a more of trust amongst us on the ice as well. So unbeknownst to Harold, he didn't even know that he made us the 5th best team in the league in the second half because he canceled the goddamn charters.
Well, they used to come to all the games and practices, Harold and King Clancy. So this one night we're in St. Louis. And Ian Turnbull he's a real character back, and he'd gone through duty free something. And anyway, he had a bottle of vodka. And we had the Gatorade or Gucanade is what they had back then. Remember, in our room? So we're in St. Louis.
Yeah.
He dumps the bottle, all of it, into the Gatorade. And in the first period intermission, in comes King and Harold. First thing they go right to the Gatorade. Big drink. That's good, they said. But they were quite a pair that would come to every game, every practice, at home, on the road. They were something to see, those two.
Well, Squid, you've got a few stories about back in the day. Actually, after you left, the players, Boris Salming told us when he was on the podcast, he would go to the rink every day. He'd see people standing outside the dressing room, and he'd just think to himself, what's going on in the circus today? What's it going to be? It could be anything from Harold getting his feet rubbed by the trainer to getting a massage to whatever it could be, or getting taped, and the players have to wait outside before they can go in the room for practice and stuff like this. So it was just one crazy thing after another. And then, of course, all stuff he'd be saying to the reporters just to get attention, and then just go away and go about his business. And Squid, I know you can add to it because you lived it all too. So
yeah, well, it was amazing when somebody sent me a Stevie Thomas, I think it was. I think it was on YouTube, and it was an interview, and I think I sent it to you, Mike.
I saw it,
and I won't repeat it, but if you go and look, the stuff that Harold said was just incredible, but he didn't give a shit. And the one thing, Gabe, like you said, when King was alive, he kind of kept Harold in check, and like you said, they were together all the time. And then as soon as King passed, Harold just went downhill in a real big hurry.
And he had a little help from Yolanda, don't forget.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, Dave, on the funnier,
we used to have to walk her dog.
Wow.
We used to have to walk her dog for her. If you weren't in the lineup that night, you had to walk the dog around take a bag with you because it was all concrete where it went for a crap.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, he lived upstairs at Maple Leaf Gardens.
That's right. In the apartment, yeah. Well, Dave, we got a couple of minutes left here before we have to let. I want to thank you again for joining us. It's one of the funniest teammates you ever played with, and maybe along those lines, we always get some guys, one of the better pranksters, and maybe a couple of examples of things that happened.
Oh, just, everybody on their team had them, but one of the funniest guys is Ian Turnbull that I ever played with. But some of the guys would do tricks. Like, one of the favorites was you'd get up to the room before your roommate did, and everybody always had a heavy coat. We come back, going east in your suit bag. First thing, you open up the closet. So if you get in there before him, you get in the closet, hide, jump out at him. When he got there, short sheeting, water tricks, whatever we could do, rookie tricks. Well, one of the best rookie tricks we did was against Rocky Saganuk. So what we did with Rocky is we were playing in Winnipeg in the old rink, and it had the hot water. Yeah, Winnipeg, and he's from out there, right? And we're going for dinner that night at his house, but it had the hot water pipes going across. So we get him tied to the trainer's table and get him, cut up, and so he can't see what we're doing to him. And first thing you do is you get warm water, and you pour it on his face, and you act like you're peeing on him. Oh, no, don't pee on him. Don't pee on him. So he's then we shave him, and we keep him tied to the table. Then we get one guy on each corner, and we bring the table out to the ice. And where the Zamboni comes in and out the ice, we push him out to the blue line approximately. He's still blindfolded. He's still taped to the table, but he's all shaved and blackened. And then we get on the team bus and leave him there.
Well, Rocky probably deserved it. He was a pretty, he was a pretty cocky kid when he came in.
Yeah. And then to make matters better, we went to his house for dinner that evening.
Oh, jeez.
And his mother and father were Ukrainian, and they had this big meal for the whole team. We had everybody, coaches, everything was like something. We had everybody in the basement of his house on this big, huge table, and there was Rocky over in the corner. It was long horse face on, mad as could be, and his parents were just so lovingly listen, treated us so well. The whole team. I'll always remember that dinner.
So will he. While we're on the topic of that, now maybe a couple questions here for you, Hutchie. The most underrated player you play with that should have got more recognition, and also along the same lines, that one player that stuck out who, or maybe there was a few of them who carried themselves day to day, not only on the ice but away from the ice in a very professional way. And the term today is used being a good pro.
Yeah. Well, hey, Borja Salming, what can you say about him? He was always the last guy to sign autographs, and so well. I rode the subway practice into the arena all the time. Like he'd be somebody that I would really look up with. Another one is Doug Wilson from the Chicago Blackhawks and San Jose Sharks general manager. I played with Doug for 3 years in Chicago. And but underrated guys, they come around. Who was underrated for when he came in with Stevie Thomas. You mentioned Steve earlier, and what a great player. And I don't even know that he was drafted, but went on to play a great career. And so they're out there, and they come out of the woodwork.
Well, Hutchie, one of the guys that I think probably one of the most underrated players of all time, and I don't understand why he's not in the Hall of Fame, and you played with him too in Chicago, Steve Larmer.
Yeah, Steve. And also Butch Goring. So here's Butch Goring's credentials. He's got 4 Stanley Cup rings. He's got a Conn Smythe trophy for MVP of the playoffs. He's got Lady Byng at least once, and Masterson at least once. So he's got 7 or 8 major trophies. Not in.
He's not.
Larmer got a cup, but when Butch went to the Islanders, that was the missing piece of the puzzle that got them, and they won 4 in a row the next run they went on. So I say him.
Well, those are pretty good selections.
I still say Larmer only because he's over a point a game, won a cup, was probably one of the best two-way forwards in the game for the entire career that he had. I just think that he was so underrated, and maybe because he was so quiet and didn't want the limelight or anything like that. So perhaps that had something to do with it as well, because he was very
one of the greatest teammates I ever had.
Yeah.
Well, guys, the hour went by very quickly. Hutchie, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. Any final comments before you go?
No, just keep it up, guys. Enjoy being here. And if you got some fans out there watching the show, obviously, and, all my best to them, and we'll be out there.
Fantastic. Squid, final comment?
Well, Hutchie, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, exactly. You guys be together. Okay, guys.
You bet, buddy.
Okay, thanks, Hutchie.